Can the people who dual screen or have two screens on their computer put an X in fleet, please? Okay. Can the people who regularly have a printed map of the area they're PvPing in, or flying in front of them, put an M in fleet? Not an X, an M. This is good. I'm very happy to see this. Because having a good scope of the area you're flying in is one of the more important things as a NFC. Yep, offline maps are good. I generally have a second screen with the dotline maps. But a printed map will do as well. Especially when you're out roaming. I mean, you guys live in like 3 systems or whatever and fight there. But having a printed map when you're out roaming, or dotline, is really important. And why is that important? Why is it important to have a map ahead of you, Dell?
Well, we had this the other day. We were over in Losec, not far away here, and there was a huge fleet coming after us. And instead of being morons and jumping through the gate, we pulled up .land and found another way home, and we all got out safely. So.
Exactly. And when you're using scouts and you get a recon report from some system, it's generally a good idea if you don't know the system or the area intimately, like we do with Syndicate. But if it's an area you're not too accustomed with, just being able to see where it is right away is a good idea. Yeah, I generally never use the in-game browser. I either have a printed map or a second screen. Or 3 monitors. Well, I don't have 3, I have 2. And 1 is small, but yep. Okay, so that sort of goes into the whole situational awareness thing. And what do I mean by situational awareness? Someone who can be, who can explain the term situational awareness to the class, who's not me? Green Yoshi?
Situational awareness is knowing what's going on not just around you immediately on grid, it's knowing what's going on all around your fleet, whether that's in multiple systems or multiple grids. You know where enemies are likely to be, where they're coming from, and you can kind of keep in mind other people in your fleet and not just know where you're flying in yourself.
Yep. Del, do you have anything to add on that?
I was just going to add, know where all your assets are and what assets are with you in system, what assets are ahead of you, what assets are behind you, and if they can respond somewhere you need them to, maybe not with the main fleet, but they can go head somebody off. So just kind of a general overall awareness of what they have and what you have and how it can be used.
Perfect. Knowing where they are and knowing where you are. Yes, it's the opposite of tunnel vision. And tunnel vision, this is the most common ailment to afflict FCs, especially new ones, but also older and more experienced ones. Tunnel vision, or information overload, potentially lethal disease, socially transmitted. And what is the cause of information overload and tunnel vision? And while you're at answering that, what can you do to prevent the FC getting tunnel vision? Green Yoshi.
Well, first of all, tunnel vision is the awareness of only a single scope of what's going on with your fleet. For example, an FC can get tunnel vision by personally trying to fly their ship around and not keeping in mind what their fleet mates are doing, not calling multiple primaries, not understanding where your fleet is or what they're doing. And a result of tunnel vision could be missed new enemies on the field, missing a local spike, not understanding when your fleet is being decreased or if you need to get out, not understanding when to push stuff. It's basically looking at a fight through a straw, not seeing the big picture.
Yep, pretty good. I generally get a little tunnel vision when I'm calling targets. Because calling targets is tricky, and there's a lot of stuff you need to calculate. So I'll be spending a lot of my time watching the overview, and I will not be watching local. I will usually not be watching D-scan, so I need someone else to do that for me. But another form of tunnel vision, when you're not in the fight itself, but you're sort of leading up to the fight. What can cause tunnel vision in an FC when you're not engaged in the fight, but you're sort of going into an engagement? Yoshi?
Being overeager or ready for a kill. are also the opposite. When you're being a little bit too afraid of risking ships or losing ships, you might focus too much on either just engaging the enemy at all costs and ignoring further intel, or trying to get away from the enemy at all costs and not see that you could be running into a trap.
Well, actually, that's describing tunnel vision. But the cause of tunnel vision, in my opinion, is exactly like Firetruck said: too much information. There's so much stuff going on, and you're getting recon reports from 5 different systems at the same time, and inexperience as well. Like you're not accustomed to piloting your ship, giving fleet command, stuff like that sort of stresses you. But too much information is the most important thing. And what can scouts do to reduce the information overload on an FC? Yeah, what they can do is to figure out have now. Is this vital to the FC right now, or is it something that can wait until a calmer moment when I hear on his voice that he's not that stressed out? So when you're being a scout or a skirmisher, a very important part of your job is filtering the information before you report it. When we're running, our fleet is running away from a huge gang chasing us. I don't want to hear about a gate camp 10 systems away that we can go kill in the other direction. That leads to information overload, and that gives me tunnel vision. Or stuff like, I just died. Yeah. I don't need to know that, because I'm busy running from some huge gank fleet that will kill us. So, if you died, that's irrelevant to me unless you're really, really important to the fleet. So, just the right amount of information, that's what's good for the scout. Okay. Any more questions on situational awareness? No? Okay, I'm going to move on to planning and engagement. Can we take them or not? And also, what is the goal of this engagement from our point of view? 2 basic parts of this. One is assessing the opponent, and the other one is assessing yourself. So you need to have a good intel. You need to have good intel on the opponent, and you need to have a clear picture in your head. What is their composition, and what are their capabilities, and also, do they have backup? Do they have, is this a bait squad? Is this a bait fleet and they're going to sino in on you? Or do they have like 20 guys hanging in the next door system just waiting for you to engage, get tackled, and then boom, they're going to come kill you? And assessing yourself versus the opponent. It's not just a numbers game. What else goes into that equation?
Fleet composition.
Prudence.
Fleet composition, the experience of the pilots. If it's in a system that you know for sure that you have better bookmarks and such in, as opposed to the opposing, if they're far from their home system, that kind of stuff.
Yep, that also helps. Absolutely. Someone said force multipliers here. Yes. Do I have a lot of force multipliers, or do they? Their falcons might be cloaked. You might not be able to see them. And a lot of their force multipliers can be off-field, but getting a good picture of them, how many ships do they have and what is their force multiplication, is a good thing. And then you need to know, what can we do with this fleet? So you need to take into account your fleet composition, and also what force multipliers do you have? Yes, Del.
Oh, well, you just hit on it. A lot of times in RVB, we're 15, 20 guys, and we're some of us aren't that skilled, or we don't have a lot of experience, but a lot of times people underestimate what their fleet can do. They don't know what's in their fleet. They don't know the pilots very well, and they're really hesitant to engage unless they're absolutely positively sure they have an overwhelming or at least a matching force, when in many cases, if they were better in tune with what they had and what their pilots could do, and they set the fleet up properly when they left, much bigger fleets are not hard to take down if you know what you have and know what you can do with it.
Yep, we'll see a couple of examples of that later, but yes, perfect answer. You've FC'd quite a bit, haven't you, Del? Really?
Yes, he has.
I figured. But just as important as understanding your enemy is understanding you. Okay, but other stuff apart from just you and the opponent, what else is important to take into account here? First thing I would say is, can we get a favorable engagement here? Can I get this engagement in the way I want it? Any examples you guys have on what I mean by this, or anyone who understands what I'm saying? Del.
Well, obviously, you want them to jump through a gate and attack you if it's possible, or you want to set up at your optimal range as opposed to their optimal range, or you want to be closer to your home system, their home system. There's a lot of ways for you to, you want to wait for more ships to arrive. There's lots of ways for you to have a tactical advantage, and you want to try to maximize those whenever you can.
Yep, Kanata. Oh, Skex, that's very well put. You want a situation where the enemy thinks they have the advantage when actually you do. Or sometimes you don't even have to hide it that well. You just have to sort of get the engagement favorably. I'm going to show you an example of this from a battle report a bit later. Let's see. Jamir, you had a comment? Please do it on eVoice, guys.
Yeah, you need to understand what your goal is. Maybe losing all your ships is fine if it's an ISK battle, or, in LVB we're seldom defending anything. So it's more about who wins the ISK war and who has the most fun than defending a station or a system.
Yes. Recently a friend of mine, Various, in-game friend, and I think it was Kushara, another Agony pilot, we were out roaming with 2 Hurricanes and a Cinnabol. And on the way back, my co-ops Altu scouting for us sees a 20-man frigate gang, a faction frigate gang, with Dramiels and Daredevils and all sorts of expensive shit. And we're in cheap as hell Tech 1 battlecruisers and 1 Cinnabol. And basically our ships are worth like 60 million, but all of theirs are more than 100. So we just wanted to kill a couple of expensive faction-fit Dramiels there and have a lot of fun. So we sort of dictated the fight where Varys and I started at 100 kilometers off the gate and had them burn out towards us, while Kashara was a bit further off so he could kite and kill the ones who tackled us. I think we ended up killing 2 Dramiels and a Daredevil and a Color Navy hookbill worth something like 400 million altogether. We died horribly except for the Cinnabol who got away. But we sort of got the fight where they had to burn out to us so we could nuke them from orbit, and we got the advantage in that fight. Even though they outnumbered us, if we started that fight at 0, we would not kill a single ship. So we sort of got the fight set up the way we wanted it. Okay. Another thing you need to assess is, do they have backup? Do we have backup? Where is my backup? Where is their backup? Can we delay their backup somehow? Will they delay our backup? In nullsec, we can use bubbles for this. Basically, if you're getting a fight right on a gate, and you can have a dictator set up from where their backup is coming, and drop a bubble like 100 kilometers off the fight, and all of their backup will land in that bubble far off from the fight, and you can calmly kill most of their fleet while the other ones are burning in, and then either disengage or kill their backup. So that's also a way to split up the enemy. So, what backup is there, and can we split them up? Any other ways you can split up an enemy to get the favorable fight? Anyone? How do you mean via gates, Prudence?
Aggression timers on gates get some of their fleet to aggress on one side while you don't aggress and you jump through, and then hopefully, the part of the fleet that didn't aggress will jump through with you, and then you have a much smaller force to deal with till the aggression timer runs out.
Exactly, that's very good. I also do this quite a bit when soloing. When I'm in my Tyrannus and there's 2 guys chasing me, I warp to a gate, and usually one or both will aggress on that gate. If both aggress, then I'm just going to go through and run away, because they're going to be clever. But if only one of them engages, and then the other one goes through with me, then I can kill him, and then either warp off, or kill the other guy when he comes through. Yep, Skix. Skix Relbor, you had a question?
Sorry, I forgot to set speaking channel. I was saying another thing to do, we run into a lot here, is you'll find an enemy who's already set up on a gate. If you just go in and jump through, you'll oftentimes force them to follow you and break their setup, so they no longer have their snipers out at range, and they'll have to come in at a more random situation against you.
Exactly. But if they're clever, they're going to bounce their whole fleet down on that gate and get their composition together before they come through. But if they're not clever or overeager, then they'll go through piecemeal and you can chew them up. But that's a good way to do it.
let's say even if they get together, that means they no longer have like snipers out at range. They'll all be landing in roughly random place around the gate instead of set up.
Exactly. And now we're sort of moving on into the part about dictating the terms of the engagement. Yep, how do I get the fight? Or do I get the fight favorably for me, unfavorably for them? So what are we talking about here? About the terms of the engagement. Do you have the term offensive or defensive gate camp in Red vs. Fully? I know EVE University does it. Yep. Basically, what this means is either you're set up to go through a gate, or you're set up to hold on the gate with your E-War and logistics set up at range, and your range chip set up at range and everything. That's a pretty favorable position to take on someone who goes through that gate. It's what's called a defensive gate camp. Offensive is through the gate. We don't use it in Agony. It's used some places, but it's quite descriptive. Well, you should start using Logi. You can use Tech 1 Logi cruisers. It's a good force multiplier. And lots of E-War too. And getting... If you're in a Tech 1 cruiser gang, short-range, shield-tanked, gank cruisers, everyone fitted with a scram, no E-War. And you're taking on a nano-hack gang like Vagabonds. Where do you want that fight? About equal numbers, where do you want that fight to be? Mangala?
You want it in your face, so you want to track and disrupt them down. Get them to come down, not the track and disrupt, you want to disrupt their optimal ranges, you want them in your face.
And why do you want them in your face?
So that they're in range of all your scrams. So that they're not going to leave the field.
Yep, you want the fight where you can scram and hold them. And you want and where your DPS can do damage and they can't kite. So what are good positions for that, and what are good ways of getting it? Prudence?
One of the ways, I don't know if this applies for a large fleet, but certainly does when you do solo, is that you warp to planets at different ranges and get the other guy to follow you, and hopefully one of the times he'll land right on you.
Yep, when I want that, I just usually warp at 0, and then most people, they follow at 0 or 100. But yep, a drag bubble is another way, or a bubble in general. One way to do this is to try and get the enemy to chase you, like you're feigning weakness. You're feigning that you're running away, and they think they are more powerful than you. And then you have an interdictor. I know you guys aren't too accustomed with them, but they blow bubbles. And you have that interdictor race a couple of systems ahead of you and warp to a gate at range, like 30 kilometers or 70 kilometers. And as soon as he lands, he pops a bubble. So you bring your fleet into that system, and you align for that gate, you wait for the enemy to get eyes on you, and then you warp to that gate where the bubble is up. And then you will land in the bubble, and when they come chasing after you, they will also land in that bubble. And where are you going to be? You're going to be at 0. So you're going to tell your guys to get scrams on whatever ship is closest to your name in the alphabet. So you distribute your scrams, and bam, you've eliminated their ability to kite. And that means you can usually kill them, actually, if you have enough DPS and the numbers are a little bit in your favor with Tech 1 cruisers against hacks. Other ways of getting the range you want. Any suggestions? Say that you want a long-range fight. Say that you're in a Drake gang, a kiting Drake gang with heavy missile launchers, and you want the enemy to burn after you. What is your... how do you do that? Anyone? I want this engagement at range. They are in HSSR, high-speed short-range battle cruisers, and I'm in Drakes. The best way to do this is to be patient. They want that fight, and if you're about even numbers, most people, at least out in nullsec, unless they're horribly outnumbered, they want to try and fight you. So your best choice is to just set up on the other side of a gate that they're at that range you want, and be patient. And a lot of the time, a lot of the enemy will come to you. If they don't, well, that's an engagement you don't get. But the other way to do that is to get right down on that gate at 0, jump into them, and then try and burn off while they kill you. And if you're patient, I mean, they will want to fight you, and a lot of FCs out there are pretty gung-ho. I've seen a lot of Hurricane fleets burn after a Drake fleet and get slaughtered. I've even seen, this was while we were living in Providence, Darkside, who are very good PvPers. They brought a 30-man Drake gang with a couple of Macarials, a few Scimitars, and some long-range points and webs into our neighboring system. And one of our blue, we had some blues at that time, blue FCs, was forming up a battleship gang. Close-range battleship gang, and wanted to take these guys on. We had 5 Guardians, we had lots of battleships, he was flying a Balgorn, and basically Darkside, they set up at 50 kilometers off gate and just waited. The gate was bubbled, so we couldn't get a warp around on them. They had like 3 anchored large bubbles on that gate, and so we couldn't get a warp around on them, land at 0. So if we wanted that engagement, we had to burn into them. They were never going to jump into us, they're too good to that. Too good for that. So basically our FC was more impatient than their FC, so we went through that gate and tried to 10% of our fleet got out alive. But they were really, really good at that. They dictated the range, they kept on kiting, just kept us interested with letting us get some damage on something, and then it burned off, and we were staying interested. I think we killed like 3 Drakes, and then they killed 40 battleships, battlecruisers. Our FC got impatient, yep. What he could have done there was just bring the battleships through, have them reapproach gate, kill the bubbles, go back out. And in the meantime, get a Kovops to get a good warp in on them, and then drop right at 0. Now you can't really TAM with a battleship fleet, but what you can do is you can place your Kovops 100 kilometers behind them. So if the range is more than 150 kilometers to that Kovops, you can warp your entire fleet to that Kovops at 100. And then you'll land right at 0. Am I breaking up for you guys?
Explain TAN.
I think they're talking about a TAM, which is a Tactical Assisted Mini-Warp.
Oh.
Basically means warping the fleet on grid, either to a bookmark or to a Kovops at range. But that was... the FC could have won that fight if he'd had a little bit of patience and set the stage properly for that fight. And unfortunately I don't have a kill board link for it. I couldn't find it for this this fight. For this class, sorry. Azual, do you think you can track down that battle on our kill board?
I can have a look, yeah.
I think if you look through my kills and then look for Erises, I haven't lost more than like 5 Erises, and it's it was an X-M. Sorry, Y-M in...
I'll have a look.
Thanks, man. Okay, so that's a little bit about dictating the range in terms of engagement. Getting an enemy to chase you. How do you get an enemy to chase you? Tell.
Well, one way is to, if it's possible, to let them see some of what you have. Let it appear to be something they can take. You know, maybe it's it's ships that they think they can kill, and you can lead them into a trap, or you can lead them into at least a situation that's tactically advantageous for your fleet.
Yep. So they need to think they're superior to your fleet, and then you need to run away. And then they need to chase you. So you need to look juicy, easily killable, and like you're running. Quite a few people, especially some pirates, they have this thing that whoever's trying to kill you, you run away from, and whoever's trying to run away from you, you try to kill. I don't like that thing, because a lot of people will overestimate or underestimate or have a false impression of their own capabilities. So I try to make up my mind on that myself. Yep. Okay, getting a cautious enemy to engage you. This is tricky. A lot of A lot of times you'll notice if you're trying to get a fight with someone, they're really cautious. Like, your assessment of the fight is that it's going to be even, or you're probably going to lose. But you'll still see a lot of opponents very wary of engaging you. How can you get around that? How can you get around an overcautious enemy?
Mic check.
Loud and
Loud
clear.
and clear.
Gotcha, sorry. I find that pretending to run away, and you really have to kind of put a show on of it too, not just 1 or 2 jumps, but 3 or 4, and being very patient works.
Yes, patience, and don't chase them.
Tone down the aggression, I guess. Is what
Yeah, don't chase a cautious enemy unless you know you can trap him. Skex?
I was going to say, basically, you got to show them your throat, make it look like they can definitely take you. You know, maybe the same thing we've been talking about all along.
Yep, but the really important thing here is don't chase them. Because that means they think you can kill them. So, that's important. Okay, trapping people. Creating traps.
Glepp,
Yep, Azual?
I've linked that fight in fleet chat. It doesn't show
yes,
the
everyone.
Pink Bunny's losses, which is the other half of their fleet. It only shows beach boys, but it wasn't very many, I think.
No, it wasn't. Okay, open this one. It wasn't Darkside, it was Pink Bunnies and Beach Boys, right? They are very good at flying range ganks. Take a look at this fight, people. Read it and weep. This is an example of what dictating the terms of an engagement can mean. You'll also see Glepp's Ares loss on this one. It's one of the many red on the right side. Where's that Balgorn? Oh yeah, there it is. Balgorn. Now let's see, we killed 1 Claymore. And 3 Drakes. And a Heretic. They killed... Let's see, 4 Armageddons, 1 Balgorn. 6 Megathron. A Scorpion. A crap ton of Tempest. An Onyx, a Deimos, a Zealot, 2 Pilgrims, a Rapier, 2 Drakes, a Raptor, a Harbinger, 2 Canes, a bunch of Guardians, and some assorted small ships.
Damn.
Yep. 7 billion versus 400 million. Now, that's what patience can get you. This is the vital importance of being patient. Yes, they also got all the faction loot from everything, especially that Balgorn, and they got all the salvage from the Tech 2 stuffs. So they made a big plus out of that fight, and we got a huge smackdown on our noses. Yeah, wife aggro, I try not to get wife aggro when I'm FCing. I try to sort of make a deal with her or do it when she's working a night shift. So it won't interfere with my patience. Yeah, another thing here is that our fleet was a bit ragtag. And close range battleships are bad for killing drakes. Medium range battleships, though, are really good at killing drakes, but yeah, Pink Bunnies and Beach Boys are really good at what they do. Okay, we're gonna leave that one behind now. Target calling. No, sorry, we were talking about traps. Can someone explain a couple of traps to me, and or a couple of examples of ways to trap, or make a trap? She wears the pants, of course. Sino is one example of a trap, but that's boring. Jameer?
You can have somebody with a pretty good tank jump through, get a lot of aggro, and have everybody else jump in once they all have aggro so they can't jump through the other side of the gate.
Sorry, Green Yoshi? That was baiting that Jameer explained there. Green Yoshi?
Well, in terms of traps, if you want to have an enemy engage you and they're a little bit leery about it, you could have part of your fleet hiding in a different location. For example, a system that's off the main route that they're not likely to cross, or if it's applicable, in a wormhole, so that they won't see you in local with scouts. Once the enemy fleet is engaged, you can hop out and engage them back.
Excellent. You mentioned the wormhole hiding trick. Very good. Wormholes are excellent places to stage a trap from. And also, if you're staging in a system, in a side system or something, with a large part of your fleet, there's one thing you really need to take into account. And what am I thinking? Del?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking, but there's a couple of things to think about. Number one, will your backups be found? And number two, how long will it take them to get to where you are? You know, if it's 160 AU warp and they have to jump through the gate, you might not make it.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about. First of all, will they be found? I wasn't thinking about that, but I was thinking about how long will it take them to get there, and can your main fleet survive and keep them there until the backup arrives? Like you said, if it's 160 AU warp, and they're in battleships, how long is it going to take a battleship fleet to warp 160 AU if you're also counting align time?
Ages.
Yeah, 2 to 3 minutes. So if your main fleet is inferior to their fleet, and it's battle cruisers, a lot of your ships will be dead in 3 minutes. So by the time your backup arrives, they might already be disengaging. They've seen the spike in local, they'll see you on scan. But what you can also do is you can put your battleships. If you guys are engaging on a gate, then you can put your backup in the system behind that gate, and then in a side system, if it's a short warp. Basically, they have to go through one gate, do a short warp, and then go through the second gate onto that gate. So they won't be visible on scan. If the enemy is clever enough to put eyes on the other side of the gate they're engaging on, they'll see them come into local and maybe start disengaging. But if not, then it's a complete surprise. Wormholes is another very good way of doing it. Okay. Log-on traps, I don't do those. We do not use log-on, log-off mechanics to exploit PvP situations in Agony. We generally frown on them. Are they petitionable, log-on traps? I can't remember if log-on traps are petitionable or not. No, but it's unethical, and it's against the code of Space Bushido, so we don't use them. Okay, yep. Next thing I was gonna go into is target calling. So, what do you prioritize when you call targets? And how do you go about it? First of all, okay, good questions, comments. Green Yoshi?
Well, usually you have to learn the ship types. In RVB, I'll give you a few examples. Usually we primary the high DPS low tank ships, or the ships that will force multiply a situation. An example of the former is a Rifter. An example of the latter could be an Incursus or a Kestrel. In the engagements Agony probably goes in, you'd look at primarying the force multipliers, such as any recons or logistics that might be easily taken out. Depends on the type of fleet you're in. If you're in a nano fleet, you might want to take out tacklers or things that can hold you down. Basically anything that will put your fleet into an unfavorable situation.
Yes, very good answer. Saki Sucker, you're an alumni from us. You've done some PvP classes. Your comment?
Yeah, additionally, to say, like, all the E-War stuff, I mean, get the E-War stuff out of the way, then you can, like, apply more of your damage, and maybe also, when you've done that, maybe then all the tackling stuff, like bubblers, small bubblers, or Hictors.
Yep, Hictors I generally leave for last if I think we're gonna win the fight. If we're gonna lose the fight, I might primary Hictors to just let us get away. But bubblers in general, I try to keep for last, actually. Unless they're tackle bubblers like sabers or stuff. But absolutely. And the most important thing that you guys said here was that it depends on your fleet and their fleet. Say that they don't have an E-War, and we're in a 15-man Munin gang, 20-man Munin gang with lots of alpha damage. They have 2 scimitars, and they're flying nano canes. and we're in Munins, and we're at 30 kilometers kiting away, I will generally not primary the Simi. No, I'm not going to primary the Simis. Why am I not going to primary the Simis? Come on, why am I not? Okay, Thekla.
You don't need to primary the Simiktars because you can do enough damage to the other ships to completely negate the logistics.
Yes, if I have 10 units firing phase plasma rounds, then I can 2-volley a Hurricane. So that means that they will have about 10 seconds to get them repped up from half armor to, if they're shield tank, from half armor to almost full shields before it's dead. So sometimes if you have enough DPS, you can actually ignore their Logi and just burn through their Logi and get their DPS down quickly. So if you have a decent amount of Logi, they have a decent amount of Logi, but you have enough DPS to burn through their Logi and ignore their Logi, you can sometimes just do that and burn down their DPS for a bit. I'll show you an example in a little bit. E-War, especially jammers, they are huge force multipliers. Yeah, exactly what Sarek said there was if you kill the Simis, they'll run. But if you leave the Simis for last, they'll stay there and they think they have a chance. Very good answer, Sarek. But E-War, especially ECM, when Agony's fighting, you'll often hear someone say, Falcon, Falcon, Falcon! And that means the Falcon has come on grid, and then everybody just switches primary instantly, and boom goes the Falcon. If we can get it. Or Blackbird, or Rook, or whatever. Some ECM ships are nasty, and we generally try to primary those. Some of the really good, yeah, Scorpions too, we don't see that many of them. Some of the really good fleet members in Agony, they will completely ignore my target calling, and they'll pop the Kitsunes, and they'll pop the tracking disruptors, and they'll pop the Blackbirds, and just ignore whatever targets I'm calling, because they're just figuring that I'm not seeing them, so they'll just pop them on their own accord. I like that. Okay, but generally, good priorities are logistics, E-War, and high gank, low tank ships, like you said. Like an Incursus, it's the best damage Tech 1 frigate, if I'm not mistaken, and it dies very quickly. So getting the Incursus off the field, yep, the Thorax and the Vexor. The Vexor actually does a lot more damage even than the Thorax. The Vexor is the highest damage ship in the game. Highest damage Tech 1 cruiser in the game, except for faction. You can get a Vexor up to 691 DPS without faction mods, all Tech 2 mods. Hurricane you can get up to like, yeah, similar 600-700 DPS. Maybe even more, but Hurricanes don't have all that much tank compared to an armor tanked Harbinger or stuff like that, but try to go for the... Leave the Drakes for last, kill because they have like 90,000 EHP and do 350 DPS, whereas the Kane has 40,000 EHP maybe and does 700 DPS. So you're naturally going to primary the Hurricane. Okay. Another important thing is that if you're in a kiting fleet, you want to kill their range control. Someone said this, you want to kill their tackle, you want to kill their range control. If you're in Vagabonds, and you're fighting a battlecruiser gang, you don't want those battlecruisers to get into range of you, and if they have a rapier on grid, that rapier will be deadly to you. Hugin also. So you want to primary the rapier and the Hugin. Get them out of the way. Yeah, Thoraxes are dangerous. Lokis with webs. Well, Loki boasted Arazus. They just have a point. I mean, if you're in Nano Canes, you can, Nano Vagabonds, you can just burn off anyway. Points don't really... Yeah, well, no, 27 kilometer scram, not 50. Unless they have... What's the highest range you can get on a faction-pointed, boosted Arazu Azual with Recon 5? I think I've seen like 30 kilometers, but no more than that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, no, they can get 100 kilometers disruptor, but not the scram. Yeah, Republic Fleet Warp Disruptor with bonuses and overheat on a Recon 5 Arazu can get to like almost 100. Faction Scram is maybe 17 to 25 or something, I think. But yeah. Okay, so that's target calling. So it's important to think about what kind of gang am I in, what kind of gang are they in, and what force multipliers do they have, And do I need to burn through their logistics first, or can I leave that for later?
Question?
Shoot.
This is not specifically target calling, but we were talking about force multipliers and ECM, and my question is how you compose your fleet with ECM or EW, electronic warfare.
I use whatever's at hand, unless we have a specific fleet composition. Generally, for say a shield tank battlecruiser gang with Hurricanes, I prefer to have everyone with ECM drones, and then I don't use any other E-War.
Roger.
If you're flying a Hydra fleet like Tech 1 frigates, you put a bit of tank on them, and everyone packs one E-War module, like a tracking disruptor, sensor damper, and you bring some ECM ships. They are very, very effective, as some of our alumni can testify. I think we've had some good fights with frigate Hydra fleets.
Okay. Run through that time. I didn't quite follow you.
Azual uses Agony. We run PvP basic classes, and for that we use something called Hydra frigate fleets. Basically, you bring everyone in Tech 1 frigates, and every one of those frigates has at least one E-War module, and that's either tracking disruptors or sensor dams, and then you bring some ECM ships as well, like Griffins. And if that fleet is 50 man, then you will have about 25 tracking disruptors. So if you take on a 10-man battlecruiser gang with Hurricanes, every one of those will have at least 2 tracking disruptors on them. They'll also have about 2 sensor dampeners on them with scan resolution damps. That means that every time they try to lock up one of your frigs, it's going to take them 30 seconds, and they have their turret range cut in at least half, and their tracking also very low. We use something called the Agony Fleet Manager for setting this up, where everyone posts their fit into macro, and then the FC gets all the fittings up on one table, and you can see how many track stamps and whatever you have. It's a very good tool. We should actually sell this to RVB, shouldn't we, Azual? We'll lease it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please.
Or just...
Dale, write the man a check, will you?
Yeah, the problem is the guy who actually wrote it for us has kind of stopped playing, and no one knows where he is. So we've been meaning to look into distributing it or something, and we haven't actually been able to do anything with it.
Yep. Okay. Let's take another bio quickly. Make it like 4 minutes, so we'll start, or 5 minutes, so we'll start again in 1942. Then we're gonna look at disengaging and preventing the enemy from disengaging, and go over a couple of killboard links.